Here's what you need to do to make your own homemade chicken stock from your chicken carcass. So you're just going to put your chicken in your crock pot. Mine I just froze because I wasn't able to deal with it when I took the chicken off the bone. If you have any veggies during this time, you can add them in here. Lots of times I'll do carrot scraps, celery scraps, onion or onion scraps. I also like to add in garlic sometimes, or poultry seasoning. Today I'm just going to add in a bay leaf, a little bit of apple cider vinegar. That just helps to pull more marrow out of the bones so that the broth is richer and has more protein in it. And then I'm also going to add 1 to 2 bay leaves as well. I'm just going to keep this very simple, very plain. So after my chicken carcass is in here, I'm just going to pretty much fill this up with water and then add my salt and my bay leaves, and then I'll just cook it on low. Okay, so I just filled it up almost to the top. This is an 8-quart crock pot. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a couple of bay leaves. First one was tiny, so I'm going to add another one. Okay, and then I'm going to use, I don't know, a couple teaspoons, a tablespoon or so of salt. You can also omit that and just add salt whenever you're using your broth. I just like to add it now, but you can totally leave it out if you want to. So I'm just going to cover this and I'm going to cook it on low. I have a timer on my crock pot, and so I'm going to set it for as high as it goes, which is about 21 hours, I think. I usually let mine go for about 24 hours. So just do 21 on low and then it'll switch over to keep warm. So tomorrow afternoon, I'll be back and show you what it looks like after it's been cooking for 24 hours. Okay, so here's what my broth looks like after a little over 24 hours. I've been letting it cool down a little bit so it's not quite as hot to work with. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to run it through some strainers to separate out the bones, the extra meat, which I'll pull off, and any, like, not sediment, but sometimes there's like a little bit of, like, I don't know, just gunk that's kind of in the broth. So I'm just going to run it through some strainers a few times, make sure it's nice and clear, and then I'll show you how I store it. Okay, just to save time, I have a large hold colander that I'm going to be using, and then on top of that I'm going to just be putting a fine sieve. That way, if anything spills out from my sieve, it will still be getting drained correctly. But this will help just get any of like the super fine sediment pieces. And since it's cooled off quite a bit, I'm able just to lift up my crock pot and pour it into here. So I do still have quite a bit of meat and a little bit of broth in my crock pot, so I'm going to finish straining that out in just a minute. Here's kind of what I pulled out with just my fine sieve. So I'm just going to kind of dump that back in here, and then that will help me when I'm just going through the meat. And then over here, we can see I can move this out, and I just have this really beautiful, rich looking broth without any sediment or any like fine particles or anything in there. So I'm just going to finish straining off the rest of the chicken broth from my bones, and then I'll show you how I'm going to store this. Like I mentioned, here's my beautiful broth. I'm just going to use a ladle and ladle it into my super cubes. Each of these are labeled with a 1 cup line and a 2 cup measurement line. I'm going to fill them up to the 2 cup measurement line since that's kind of the most common amount that I use in soups and stuff is 2 cups or 4 cups. So I'm just going to fill these up and then let them cool. And then once they're all cool, I'll put the lids on and stick them in the freezer to freeze. Okay, so I'm just gonna let these cool. Once they have cooled down enough, I'm just gonna stick them in the freezer until they have frozen solid. I still have about 3 to 4 cups of broth left. So I'm just gonna keep this in the fridge for a couple of days until these have frozen solid. And then I'm just gonna pop out the frozen chicken broth cubes from one of these trays and just fill it with the rest of this chicken broth so that it can finish freezing as well. So as you can see, chicken broth is super easy to make, basically from free ingredients, and it just makes your soups taste very deep and have a super rich, delicious flavor. Here's everything you need for the creamy white chicken chili. You're going to need 1.5 to 2 cups of chicken broth. This is just my frozen homemade chicken stock. And then 1 to 2 pounds of chicken breast. I just have 2 large ones right here. You're going to need a couple cloves of garlic, an onion that's chopped, and then the original recipe calls for 2 cans of Great Northern beans. We don't like a ton of beans, so I'm just going to use 1 can today. And then you're also going to need 8 ounces of diced green chilies, which is 1 of the larger cans or 2 of the smaller cans. But I'm just going to use this jar of them and kind of choose how much I want. For spices, you're going to need salt, pepper, oregano, and cumin. And all these will go into the crock pot. And then after it's cooked all day and you've shredded the chicken, you're going to add 1/2 cup of whipping cream and 1 cup of sour cream that you whisk together until it's smooth, and then mix it into the chili. So I forgot to film putting in the milk and sour cream, or the cream and sour cream, but after I put that together and stirred it all up, here's what it looked like. Here's what you need to make the chicken wild rice soup. You're going to need 5 cups of chicken broth. I just have this frozen homemade ones. These bigger blocks are 2 cups and the smaller one is 1 cup. And then you need about 2 medium chicken breasts. I just got one that's really big. To that, you're going to add 3 chopped carrots and 3 chopped stalks of celery. You're also going to add 1 cup of like a wild rice blend. You need 1 teaspoon of salt, which I forgot to grab, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. You need 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning and 1 bay leaf, and you're going to add all of those things to your crock pot to cook all day. And then after it's been cooking all day, you're going to pull out your chicken to shred, and then you're going to mix 1/2 cup of flour with 1 cup of milk. And after you've whisked that together to get all the clumps out, you're going to add that to your soup after you've shredded the chicken. And then you're going to heat it through for another about 30 minutes to make everything all nice and creamy. So here I've already put in the chopped up carrots and celery, and I'm adding in some of the seasonings, the pepper, the poultry seasoning, and the bay leaf. And then I'm adding in my 1 cup of wild rice blend and cooking that on low all day. Here's what it looks like after it's been cooking for about 6 to 8 hours. I pulled out my bay leaf and I'm shredding up my chicken just by using my meat masher. When it's nice and tender like this, it's super easy to do. It kind of looks like mush, but it tastes really, really good. So here I added in my flour and milk that I whisked together, and then I'm just stirring it to kind of get it all incorporated and mixed in really well. The rice cooks really, really well using this method, and it's nice and soft. And it tastes really good, even if it doesn't always look that great. So here's what it looks like all bowled up, and my family all really enjoyed it. Here's everything you need for the bacon cheddar gnocchi soup. You are going to need 4 cups of chicken broth. This is just the leftover 4 cups that I have from my homemade chicken broth. You're also going to need a pound of gnocchi. So this I just got at my local Winco grocery store. You're going to need 1 onion chopped, 2 to 3 carrots chopped. For spices, you're going to need 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt. You're going to need about 4 minced garlic cloves or some garlic powder. And then towards the end, when you add in the gnocchi, you're also going to add in 2 cups of half and half or cream. I'm using half and half today. You're also going to stir in 2 cups of shredded cheese at the end. So here I just added in my carrots and my onions, and then added in that beautiful broth that we made earlier in this video. And to that I'm just adding my seasonings. So I've added the salt and pepper, and here are the red pepper flakes and the thyme and the garlic. So I'm just going to cook that on low all day. Here's what our soup is looking like after the veggies and the broth have been cooking all day. I'm going to add in my 2 cups of half and half. And then I'm also going to add in my 16-ounce package of gnocchi. So I'm just going to give that a stir and make sure all the gnocchi is covered. And then I'm going to turn this onto high and cook it for about 20 to 30 minutes until the gnocchi is cooked through. And then after the gnocchi is cooked through, I'm going to add in my 2 cups of shredded cheese. And then at the beginning of the video, I forgot to show you the bacon, of course. So at the end, I'll add in a handful or 2 of bacon and mix it all up so it's ready to serve. So my gnocchi is now cooked through. So I'm just going to add in the cheese. That will help to thicken it a little bit. And I'll also add in the bacon. Okay, and then to serve this, I'm just going to put it in some bowls. You can top it with additional bacon and cheese or sour cream. I think I also might add in some crackers or tortilla strips of some kind just to add a little bit of a crunchy texture to this as well.